Dear friends, as long as I do not have monetization, please support the channel for its development. Link to donate in the description of the video. Thank you very much and enjoy watching. On 20 July 2018, Daria Makhartova put on a tracksuit and went down to the courtyard for a run. The 18-year-old medical student, true to tradition, liked to keep fit and run in the evenings. But this jog was her last. Dasha never went home again. Two friends, Ruslan Ajanov, 26, and Anatoly Shevchenko, 30, lived in Kostanay, Kazakhstan. Tolik worked as a concrete worker. Ruslan did not work, was in a common law marriage, and had two children, girls. Both had been convicted more than once. The days are warm. The city beaches are full of young people. Cheerful friends laugh out loud. Ruslan and Anatoly are drinking with their friends. They still had work to do, so they shook hands with everyone and dispersed. They were completely sober in spite of the alcohol in their blood. At 6 p.m., Ruslan and Trick went out alone and after dark walked along the busy road. It was already 10 p.m. when they found a beautiful girl running along the road. Dasha was running without anyone noticing them. Anatoly smiled, patted his friend on the shoulder and said, "Look at her. You have to do it." "How?" Ruslan was surprised. "You take her to the side, and I will wait there. There are bushes around," Shevchenko explained. "It is dark. People won't notice." She jumped off the curb, screamed as she was startled and rolled down the slope, where Tolik was already waiting for her. A couple of young people walked past and noticed the scene. They called the police immediately and reported the case. However, when police officers arrived, Almat and Ruslan did not even get out of their car to look at the roadside. The reasoning was that this area was not their responsibility. The officers were convicted of criminal negligence. In the bushes of the ravine, Ruslan grabbed Dasha, covering her mouth. But Tolik happily pulled down his trousers and started to kiss the poor girl. Dasha struggled as best she could, but the guys roughly clasped her hands, hurting her and advising her to bear with it and not to interfere with them. Anatoly gave way to Ruslan, but he failed, so Tolik continued his violence. "Kill her," Anatoly told his friend, squeezing Dasha's face with his hand. "She would turn us in." "Don't do it," he begged her. "Please let me go." While Anatoly was putting on his trousers, Ruslan took a stick and started hitting her in the face as hard as he could. Daria tried to protect her head with her hands, but Anatoly kicked her in the kidneys, stomach, and throat. She clung and moaned as the guys, who looked like wild dogs, tore off her clothes and inserted sticks into her anus. They continued the abuse and laughed at her organ as they pulled the stick out. The boys continued to beat Dasha indiscriminately with sticks and pieces of concrete structures until her mouth gushed blood and she began to suffocate. The perpetrators picked up heavy stones from the ground and threw them at Dasha's head. Dasha ended up choking on her own blood. The police arrived on the scene at the same moment and did not find the victim outside. The mother called the police to report that her daughter had gone for a run and had not returned. The woman was distraught and raised the alarm with the family later that evening. Volunteers went in search of Dasha. The search was narrowed down when her mother pointed out the route her daughter was jogging on. The next day, on the 21st of July, Dasha's body was found. The police started looking for eyewitnesses and people quickly responded. The first people to come forward were the boy and the girl who called the police. Many motorists who had decided to watch the CCTV footage at that time of day immediately informed the police. The footage, showing the moment the girl was thrown into the abyss, helped to create a portrait of the culprits. The police also detained 2 police officers. On October 5, 2018, the police officers were sentenced to 18 months imprisonment. On 3 January 2019, the first preliminary hearing was held in the criminal court. More than 3 dozen expert examinations were requested during the investigation. The judge found traces of the victim's blood on Shevchenko's clothes. Only the mother and aunt of the deceased girl, 2 lawyers, both sent by the state, and the prosecutor were present at the trial. Anatoly was the first to refuse in court, followed by Ruslan. He even tried to create an alibi for himself, referring to a witness in court, but the latter refuted his version. On 13 February 2019, the verdict was pronounced. The court sentenced Ruslan Ayanov to 23 years and Anatoly Shevchenko to 25 years in a strict regime colony. Both were ordered to undergo compulsory treatment for alcohol addiction. They are also jointly obliged to pay psychological compensation to the dead girl's mother. During the announcement of the verdict, the two friends hid their faces from the cameras and journalists. Olga Pokoteva, mother of the deceased Dasha, stood up from her seat and addressed the perpetrators. "Look into my eyes." But Anatoly and Ruslan did not. Were they ashamed? Whatever the real reason, they could not or would not look her mother in the eyes.